Welcome back to another great episode of Dr. J Radio Live, coming to you from the City of Angels or City of Demons, depending upon who we ask. That's where I'm broadcasting from, but our home base, UPRN, is broadcasting from 107.7 FM, as well as all the affiliate stations, which literally are global. Another affiliate station that I was able to carry on over when I came over here was Deprogrammed Radio in the UK with their terrestrial stations in London and Leeds. Now, we have a super great show for you today. Not one, but two amazing guests. If you fellows listeners have been paying attention to this show before we came on to UPRN, when we were the last network, then you probably have a good idea of what's to come tonight. But for all you UPRN folks, you're really in for a treat. We've got some super important stuff to talk about. And you literally, some of you out there, I don't think you really understand how much you're probably affecting your own life by your habits, by the words you speak, by different little things like that, or really understand the value of consciousness. Honestly, I gotta say, before I spoke to these two fine people, I thought I knew what consciousness was all about, but I gotta say I was blown away. And just for another little cool trick out there, I was always one of those who could never shut my darn mind up from when I was trying to meditate. Yet one of my guests, who's also a great friend of mine, was able to tell me something literally so rudimentary, elementary, and it worked. It worked. I am so honored and blessed for that. And the other guest, she is truly, truly amazing. Like I said, you guys are all in for a guest, and she has been working on me with Reiki. She is a healing artist and so many other great things. And there's so many titles about the other guests, so let me just introduce them both for you. First, as I mentioned, the healing artist is Miss Nori Love. Nori, welcome back.
Oh, hi. It's so good to see you. Well, so good to be with you again. Thank you.
Oh, the pleasure is all here. It's absolutely all here. And, of course, your partner in crime, Mr. Aage Nost. Aage, welcome back, dear friend.
Well, hello there.
Well, listen, before we dive into this night's topics, let me just tell this out for the listeners out there. If you all paid attention last night to Mr. Richard Doty, he was a special agent in the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. If you recall, he said in 1983, when he was read into the so-called ET program at Kirkland Air Force Base, long before he went to his second visit to Area 51, he was briefed by a full bird colonel, and he was shown a 20-minute film. If you recall, he said that bits and pieces of that film have been released. And I said, wait a second, are you talking about Skinny Bob? Well, after the show, I had a chance to email him not just the Skinny Bob footage, there was also some other footage around that. Literally from that same time frame, 1942 up until 69, they all sort of look like, some of it looks like the Roswell wreckage, some of it looks like other craft. There's the Skinny Bob. There's also what's called Family Vacation, which is like three so-called Skinny Bobs. Well, Mr. Doty was able to confirm that is precisely what he saw 36 years ago now at this point. So just wanted to get that out there for you folks, especially for all of you yesterday who were asking, where can we see this leaked footage? Now, tonight, we're talking about a super important topic, as I've already thrown some hints at you, about consciousness, about what we can do to understand it is one thing, what we can do to sort of reprogram our bodies, heal ourselves. There's just so many great stuff, and I don't want to spoil it because I don't want to sound like I'm the expert. Really, my two fine guests are. So let me just open this up, and this is a way, and this is for both of you, Nori and Aage. What do you think people need to know more than anything else right now?
Wow, that is a really deep question.
I love that question.
Gosh, I think probably people need something, but they don't even know what it is yet. What do you think, Nori? You want to run with that one first?
Absolutely. I think people need to know that they have choices. People need to know that we get to choose the way that we navigate this moment in time on the planet or any other dimension that you happen to be on. That anything that you have believed in the past, right? Maybe it's your religion, maybe it's manifestation, maybe it's Buddhism, maybe it's Tantra, maybe it's, I don't know. I mean, whatever it is, whatever you believed in, if you put your focus and if you put your heart into it and really, really practice what you believe in, then everything that you imagined that the way this time could be can actually be that way.
Aage, what do you have to say about that?
Well, what you're saying is exactly right, because there is a science behind it all, because quantum mechanics right now, they have proven to us through repeatable and verifiable experiments that we live in a mind-created universe. So what she's saying, in our mind, we can help to fashion, to plan, and to design our life actually before we have to live it.
Now, let me ask you both something, and this is totally something that I maybe should have asked you before the show that I was going to bring this up, and this is totally off the whim. We didn't discuss this last time, but I've been paying more attention to string theory. Have you both paid attention to it, or at least are loosely aware about that?
Like what aspect of it do you mean?
The fact that literally it comes down to everything being a vibration, and that everything is literally connected. Like, right. We physically are connected. The computers in front of us are not matter. They're just vibrating at a smaller wavelength, a lower frequency. So you're both well aware of this. Now, the other aspect of it is also, what do you think about the possibility that the Big Bang Theory didn't happen 13.5 billion years ago, that it's always happened, infinite, and it's always happening. So every nanosecond, another giant Big Bang is happening, opening up yet another dimension. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I kind of think that the Big Bang Theory is pretty much dead now. We, at least quantum mechanics is talking about the fact that no, there were no bang, because first of all, the term was this kind of invented because they didn't know what to call the beginning. And they resonated back and found that, yeah, maybe this is what we'll call it, and this is what it must have been. But the thing is that what I saw in my download was that there was just the very, very beginning of it was one particle of thought that entered into the fourth dimension, and it was a curious one, and it asked, I wonder what I can create, and then it duplicated itself, and it keeps duplicating and growing.
Real quick, you said you had a download real quick? Right? A download, non-terrestrial download, do you think, or just something from a gift from the universe?
Well, it's nothing special. A lot of people have that. And what it really amounts to is that you start getting a flush of information into your mind where you can, in my case, I saw both the mental and the visual pictures of something in a pool where there were inventions, there were people, there were things, there were concepts floating around there. And if I attached to one of those concepts, concentrated on it, it was brought out so I could see the details in it. And this was just flying by for the 10 seconds or less, and then it started fading out. Somewhat similar to what Nikola Tesla said after an electronic experiment. I saw the past, present, and the future at the same time.
Interesting, very interesting. And that's actually something that when you think of other dimensions, you think of time being 100% man-made, as if time doesn't exist. We only put it so we can have a reference point. Because literally, if you really think about it, if there's all these different dimensions out there, then in this dimension we're talking on the show, in another dimension I'm on your show, on another dimension there is no show, sort of deal. And the thing is I've always wondered, and I want both of you to answer this, and I'm going to start with Nori. Doesn't our thought right now, in this particular moment, in this particular dimension, affect not just our lives, not just our future, but what's happening to us in other dimensions?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why do you think? Yeah. So why do you think? First of all, let's talk about, well, what are thoughts? I mean, thoughts are literally just something that comes from our mind. It's not verbally spoken, but why does it have such power? Is the question? Is the bigger question.
Why do you think it? I mean, thoughts are one of the most powerful energies, vibration frequencies in the there is, right? So, of course, they're powerful. But what we do with them, and what we pair with them, the feelings that we pair with them, is what impacts what happens in this dimension or other dimensions. I mean, you might not be aware of all of the other dimensions right now because there may be a certain amount of limitation that you've bought into. There a certain amount of walls that you've put up around your heart. You know, you're too afraid to feel the feelings that are on the other side of them, that prevents you from experiencing the frequency of the other dimensions. But the thoughts that we're thinking right now has everything to do with all of the dimensions.
Aage, what do you say about that?
Well, what she's saying is actually true, because thoughts, they are just thoughts until we do something with it. And we can do that in this dimension by adding intention to it, visual images, emotion, love. That's the spiritual language of creation. So we can affect it in this reality, but more so also we can have a bleed over into other areas and higher vibrations up and beyond the four-dimensional physical reality we think we are living in now. It can bleed over into other realities, and it can affect that.
So, Dr. J, what do you think?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm, you guys literally woken my mind in so many different ways, and I honestly, what I've always wondered is,
those are the best words I've ever heard.
Right, yeah, and honestly, let me tell you this, and this is something I've read from a psychology book of all things from the early 50s by Uspensky, and what he talked about is that technically we're all really asleep, because what we do is we respond to external stimuli and react. So let me give you an example. You're driving, right? Are you paying attention to each car, the colors, the makes, the models, the scenery? No, you're thinking about things, right? You're driving like it's second nature. But but once you wake up, once you're really truly awake, then you're no longer just reacting, you're actually acting. And since you're awake, you are, and well, when you're asleep, you could probably, I don't want to put this in a harmful way to people, but really, if you're half asleep, you're also thinking half intelligently. But when you're awake, when you're fully awake and you're no longer reacting to stimuli around you, and you're actually acting, being proactive, then you are doing things in a more intelligent fashion.
A more intentional fashion.
Intentional, exactly. And that's a very, very, very major thing, because, see, a lot of people out there will say, well, I couldn't do this, or I can't do that, or this person won't let me. Well, really? Because who's really in control? It's ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that this kind of goes back to the beginning. The questions you asked me. What's the most important thing that people should know right now? And to me, the most important thing is to know that you have choices. That you have choices to exercise what you really, really, really believe in, even though maybe that seemed fantastic. Like, what do you mean I can have heaven on earth? Are you kidding me? Well, maybe that's true. And if it is true, here's what I'd kind of like it to look like. So it's important. We can talk about string theory. We can talk about the Big Bang. We can talk about other dimensions. But my question is, what about that can be satisfied so that we can be about manifesting the life and the health and the meaning, right? The lifestyle that we want in our life right now. Like, what do we need? Is that an aspect of being awake? Do you have to be awake in order to do that? Or do you have little red flags that begin to blow up while you're still asleep, letting you know, hey, something's coming that you can, you're going to be able to change something in the near future. Are you paying attention? You want to go with it? If you want to stay on autopilot, you want to stay numb, right? So that goes. I really
real quick,
took a detour.
Thank you for mentioning the fact, because autopilot, essentially is numb. I mean, really, that's why you are being in autopilot, is so you can be numb.
Right. So it's numb, but it can be a numbness that you feel. It could be a painful numbness, right? You could be numb in your torment. You could be numb in your pain. You could be numb in the relationships that you keep playing out over and over again that are not comfortable. You could be numb in the pain of the job that you don't love anymore, right? So we can be on autopilot and we can be numb, but we don't necessarily not feel things, right? If we're numb, we're just kind of status quo in a stuckness.
Yeah, and if we find ourselves in that situation, all we really have to do is to think ourselves out of it. We can make a decision to go a little bit different direction, start concentrating on different things, and that numbness will go away with the foreign arena that we go into becomes interesting, and we learn things, and then we wake up and the numbness go away, the sleep goes away, and we're awake again.
Let me ask you, these are questions coming from, I hope I say the last name correctly, so Lasha out there, I hope that's how you say your first name properly, according to Josh it is. Let me say this, Lasha Senuik, I hope that's right. Okay, 2 questions, and it's aimed at both of you. 1, I wonder if the guests think that time is linear, because I'm pretty darn sure it ain't, is what she wrote.
No.
Aage?
Well, let me grab this one first. Time, first of all, very difficult to understand. What I saw again, and supported by quantum mechanics now, is that time is not linear, because there's many different scientific experiments now, repeatable ones, that has proven that a future event can give a reaction to it in the past. In fact, there's several of them that I write about in my book there. And in fact, if you go straight forward, not to the right, left, up or down, but straight forward, eventually you will end up in the location where you started. That is straight out of the books of quantum mechanics. And they're right on this, because the curvature of time is actually a circle.
You know, what you just said, Aage, really reminds me of a movie, geez, I think it's almost 20 years old at this point, and I'm talking about the movie Paycheck, if you remember it, with Ben Affleck. And in the movie, he builds a time viewing device where it involves some sort of optics, and what he says is that if you can see far enough through the curvature of the space-time continuum, then you end up coming back and you see yourself. But you don't see yourself now, you're seeing yourself later. And depending on what's going on and even how your thought is affecting you, then that's going to affect what you're viewing. Which essentially also translates into nothing is set for the future. Literally, every single second it can be changed. And it is changed, isn't it?
Yeah. And what quantum mechanics talks about that is they talk about a They call it a time-like curve, and it is the path of a particle in space-time that is closed, loop-like. And Einstein said, even somewhat similar to what I said earlier, if you draw a line forward into forever, you will eventually end up where you started.
That doesn't sound like forever.
Yeah.
It's true. That's true. Lasha, she actually corrected it, so now I can finally say her name properly. It's Senyak. This is the second part of the question. She asks, let me find the two here, is what separates dimensions? Good question, I think.
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. Pixie was barking.
Yeah, no problem. What separates dimensions?
Aage?
Yeah. Okay.
I'll go next. Yeah.
Well, it's a separation of vibration. And the higher up in the dimensions that you go, the faster vibration you will have of everything within that space-time vibration. So actually I said that wrong. Space-time, in the higher vibration you don't have time, you only have this soup of creation. And the higher you get into it, everything is there in the present. So whatever, that don't mean that you cannot concentrate on things in the now and exclude other things that may be in the future on the past there, but you concentrate on, you bring it out and you relive it and you observe and you deal with it. And then when you go to something else, that thing will disappear into the soup again and become part of the all.
I got lost. I got lost. I'm raising my hand. I got lost. Can you say that different? Can you say that differently?
Yeah, I probably could. Let's say the physical vibration. We're told that we live in a three-dimensional world, which really is a fourth-dimensional world because fourth dimension is time. Within that, there's a certain vibration or frequency. Up and above that, there is also a certain vibration or frequency, but it's a faster vibration. And the dimension above that is a faster vibration yet. So it keeps going up to...
So each dimension is a higher vibration and a higher frequency, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I never actually thought of that way, but it makes perfect sense. Honestly, it makes perfect sense. Nori, what do you think?
Thank you. I think what separates the dimensions is our thoughts, our feelings, our vibration, and our ability to allow ourselves to expand so we can experience the other dimensions. It's our ability to allow, ability to surrender to the nature of what we really, really are inside, but it's been trained out of us. It's been taught out of us. It's been scared out of us. So...
Well, you opened up a whole other point, and so let me just sort of ask this because although it's not written in this technical, I'm actually reading some from the chat. This is technically not essentially that, but how can we heal ourselves? And I know you know about this a lot, Nori, because you've been doing healing for me remotely. So essentially, don't we all have that capability?
Absolutely. We all have that capability, and it's not me. It's not me doing the healing. I'm a vessel for the Reiki energy, but when you agree to have a Reiki session, you agree to allow yourself to expand into different frequencies, into different energetic fields, vibrations. You allow yourself to do that, and the divine wisdom of the universe, right, universal energy, knows exactly what you need. So when you open to that, right, because your conscious mind isn't going, I don't know if this is going to work, I don't know if I'm feeling anything, right, because it's distance and it's at night when you're sleeping, and when you're open to that, you are just allowing your body to do what it can always do, what it could always do. It's our divine birthright to be able to heal.
Now, I've always wondered that if the Library of Alexandria was not destroyed, what possibly could we have found in there? Because if you really think about it, it seems like our past selves, and I'm thinking not 2,000 years ago, Jesus era, not even the ancient Greek or ancient Roman or Egyptian Empire. Previous to that, what did we really know that we forgot?
But we can ask ourselves that, we can set the intention to want to know. Okay, I want to remember. I want to remember what I know. And I promise you something's going to shift in your life. If you make that statement, something's going to shift.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Absolutely. And the thing about it also is that whatever was in the Alexandria Library is not lost, because it is located, because it was created, it is in the Akashic records. Every dimensional separation or dimensional space has its library. We have libraries in the third dimension, the fourth dimension too. They call libraries. And up above there, we have the Akashic records, and up above there are other libraries of information of creation. So it is not lost, it's just that we don't have access to it in the physical.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. And I know you both touched on this, the fact that they, and when I say they, I'm pointing to, some people will say the cabal, other people will say the corporations. I even will blame traditional school for teaching us this linear thought that, hey, whatever happened in the past does not affect you now. It's only what you do now that affects the future, and stop daydreaming, sort of thing, right? I mean, that's the gist of it all. And by the way, let's shove a bunch of information down your throat, even though you're not going to remember it past your test or essay. Mm-hmm. And, after 12 years of this, or 12 grades, if you decide to go to college, and we'll throw in another 4 to however many years you want to throw over the same process. And I don't want to use the word dumb, but they are dumbing us down in this traditional sense, are they not?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. We have never been taught how to use our mind, but it really is fairly simple to start using it. All we have to start to step out of the box and start exercising some of the stuff that Nori was talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, why do you think prisoners of war, or people who are incarcerated, come upon the realization that there's something more to thinking, right? Because they're immobilized, right? They're stopped short. They're having all of their fears thrown at them at once, and then they have no control over it. Where do you go from there? Where do you go? You go into your mind and you go, oh my God, I didn't even know this was in here.
Yeah.
Then you have a new superpower. Yeah.
Aage, any comment on that?
Well, it's really just that, I remember a story about a guy that was shot down in an airplane over Vietnam during the war, he ended up...
You mean shot down like as in he was in a vehicle, like a helicopter or airplane, or like literally shot and was hit by a bullet?
No, he was in an airplane and they shot the airplane down.
Okay.
And he ended up at the Hanoi Hilton, and he spent 5 years there, and he, in his mind, he was a golfer, and he played golf in his mind every day. And when he got home, there were no difference in his performance as before he left, because he had practiced and he was good at it when he got back.
Interesting, because see, now we're not talking about physical muscle memory. You're talking about mental muscle memory, right?
Yeah.
Or imagination.
Mental exercise.
Nori, you mentioned something fantastic, and I want to touch upon this. You mentioned superhuman strength or super strength or superpowers, right?
Superpowers. Yeah.
Yes. What can the majority of the people, and again, I know some of this might be repetition from what we did 8 weeks ago or so, 7 weeks ago, but there's a purpose for that, because we have a large audience again. How can we unlock this superpowers for ourselves and to teach others to do it? Because a lot of people believe so many people, and I'm sure both of you have heard this, say that Earth is a prison planet. We are trapped. And I'm thinking, well, are you, or are you just trapped in your own mind?
Right. So what are you creating if you say that it is a prison planet? So if you think it's a prison planet, then what story have you bought to keep yourself dumb? Right? So, and if it's a prison planet, how much more pain or discomfort do you need before you choose to open to the power within your mind? So it's just a matter of, how much life experience do we have to have that didn't go great or didn't feel good or didn't ring true with us or we don't fit in? Like, how much of that do we really need before we go, you know what, I think there's something more. And when you think there's something more and you think you have a glimmer that you do have superpowers in there, then you just have to choose, right? Set the intention that you want to open to that. And I promise you, a path will rise up before you. A path will rise up before you in response to what you are asking in your intention. I want to remember. I want to open to my superpowers. I want to heal. I want to tap into the healing capacity of my body. I want to have energy. I want to be happy, right? All of those, that if you just set that intention and you pay attention, right? Don't go totally numb, like don't overdose on, chocolate or coffee or whatever, so that you forget to pay attention that you set an intention. But the next day, the next weeks to come, pay attention and see what shows up and go, what is that over there? I think I just want to go over there and see what's going on over there. And bam, you're going to find something. You're going to find something that's going to open you up to what you asked for.
Nori, this is perfect. I'm glad you mentioned this because I was already thinking in my head to ask you about law of attraction. This exactly sounds what you're talking about.
It is law. It is law of attraction. It's the universal laws. It's law of attraction. It's where we began. If this is a mind-created universe, so that's a very heady, right? That's a very heady, esoteric kind of thing. It's a mind-created universe, right? It could bring you thoughts of everybody being in pods in some spaceship, like right, a Matrix kind of thing, or you could just imagine that. You're this brain on a shelf, and you're experiencing life based on the frequencies that you're putting out. So there's a lot of ways that you can think about that. But the bottom line, the golden thread that weaves through it is that our thoughts create. And if the quality of our thoughts right now create what's coming tomorrow, what quality of thoughts would we choose?
Good ones, obviously. Happy,
right?
Who wants to choose sadness? Who wants to choose pain and suffering? Why would you want to do that?
But because you're numb in the frequency of pain, because pain has become habitualized for you. Pain has become, watch the TV and tell me if you're not in pain, really?
Yeah. That actually, I have a really important question to ask you about that. So hold that thought real quick because I don't want too much time to pass by and me not pay attention to these listeners, because the listeners,
I know, I love them.
When they have questions, it's obviously I want to give them priority. So this is coming from, actually it's at Pam Bredenberg. She is my social media manager. So this is for both of you. She wants to know if anyone has information about today being 2/19/19. Does that have a meaning?
Well, it's a spiritual gateway. It's a planetary alignment that is very special and unique to this time, and it's numerology wise, that's not my area of expertise, so I could not really speak to that.
No, I'm totally out in the dark on the numerology too. I never studied it. I know that there is something to it, and there are some people that is really good at it, but for the most, it's almost like a lost science. But I know that it's something there that can be brought out and put to work.
Okay, so if I had to make something up, I would say that the 2/19/19 is the bridge the bridge that connects you to your dreams coming true. It's the gateway that opens to all of the amazing ways that you wanted to feel, all the things you wanted to do, all of the levels of consciousness you wanted to open to. That's what I would say. Then I would create from there.
Going back to something else you also said, Nori, about, for instance, what you said, watching TV, and that's carrying the pain and the numbness sort of thing. And I want to say this, but I don't want to really bring up the source, I guess, because I don't want to be attacked. So, and I guess I might as well say it as politely as I properly can, because if you piss off Scientologists, they will hunt you down without anything else. Well, L. Ron Hubbard in Dianetics, one of his things that he says, and believe me, folks, anybody out there listening, I am not trying to knock Scientology, nor am I a Scientologist. This is just something I took from what I've seen, but I just want to get your guys' opinion on this, because a lot of people, since this is one of the lower level things that they have you sort of read in Dianetics before you progress along until you hear about Xenu, the warlord, and things like that. L. Ron Hubbard tells a story. A man has an automobile accident. Well, he's still wearing the automobile accident, all the pains and traumas, etc. Well, if he goes back and he stops wearing the car accident, well, then all of a sudden his pains and neuroses go away. What is your take on Mr. Hubbard's thought?
I mean, energetically, I tend to believe that that's true, and that's how I work with people. If you had a trauma, if you had an accident, if you had an emotional trauma, that expresses on the energetic level. So if your body heals and you don't really heal the energetic memory of that or the energetic imprint of that, yeah, it's gonna play out in the physical body. It's gonna play out in your physical life. Yes.
See, I actually, tended to believe that part, because I think that we're not talking about basic psychology here. This is something that you're talking about even further than that. And that makes sort of sense. Remember how, Nori, we were talking privately about what else could be, carrying, or you were mentioning like letting things go. Well, that is essentially the same thought, right? And that's just taking it a step further, because even though someone may have experienced physical pain, but yet physical pain still has underlying emotional pain. I mean, there we go. Thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people say, well, physical pain is a good thing because it makes you it reminds you that you're alive. Well, okay, I agree with that statement, but at the same time, do you really look for it? Because why?
Well, pain can be a good thing. Pain sometimes is placed there because it tells you that something is wrong. So now you go and look at, I got a pain in my stomach, and then you go to the doctor and you find out you got a tumor. Otherwise, you probably would never know about the tumor. So pain can have a good purpose.
But also, and I want to get Nori's thought on this, isn't it true, Aage, that the reason we would have a tumor is because something that we probably created in ourselves?
Yeah.
So you're the emotional pain, right? The emotional pain, the expression of yourself that you withheld, the truth of who you are that you stuffed, the lies that other people, your family, school told you that you bought into. Those are not physical things. They're emotional things. They're emotional energy, but they can take up residence in the body as something.
Yeah.
So the benefit of working on the energetic level is that you get to work at where it began. Like if I worked with you every day on an energetic level, you wouldn't get the flu, you wouldn't get the sore throat, because the disease, air quotes, shows up first on the energetic level. So we would smooth that vibration out so that it didn't take up expression in the physical cells.
Now, and I want to say this because I'm pretty sure anybody out there listening who knows me pretty much knows the reason why I was gone for so long is because of this recurring pneumonia. And I still have to deal with things like this all the time, with hypoxia. And once you have hypoxia, it really hits you hard. When you're not 35,000 feet in the air, yet your brain feels like you're not getting enough oxygen, things from the worst headache possible to how you can think, to how you say things, are all affected. And it's almost scary to sleep sometimes because how much lower can your oxygen go? Now, the reason I only bring this up, Nori, is one, because people know this, but two, because you just mentioned if you worked with me, I wouldn't be getting all these things. And the unfortunate part is I have been for several years lately.
You've been what?
Getting the pneumonia, the high fever, the ear infection, all of the above, you sore throat. As I even mentioned before we went on air today, what was a couple of things I'm battling literally as we speak. Last week was heavy bronchitis, borderline pneumonia, and the fever is still carrying over to this day, and so is the sore throat. And here's the thing is, I know if you work on me, we can fix this, or you can the universe can fix it, but what is it that you think that I, myself, am doing to invite this disease in myself, even though I'm trying to say things positively?
Right. Absolutely. So first of all, you have a huge momentum, right? You have, I don't know, how many years of momentum do you have moving, right, in the disease direction? So, that's like trying to stop. Decade
plus, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like trying to stop a train. So, it's going to take a little bit of effort. The times that you don't hear yourself, and you own the disease, the times that you don't hear the possessive ways that you speak about the disease, is part of what keeps it going. And if you woke up tomorrow and never spoke of the disease again, and that's hard, it would shift a lot. But the other thing that I was thinking is that who better? Okay, so pain is not just, okay, pain's good because it lets you know something's wrong. No, there's way more to pain. Some people get pain for spiritual awakenings. Either we choose to awaken, or pain or discomfort encourages us to awaken. So who better to give this mountain of seemingly insurmountable symptoms to than somebody who has a mind like yours?
True, very true.
Right?
And has so much time, as you mentioned, intertwined with it, because like you said, it's hard for me to not think about it, because then if I talk about me skydiving a few years ago, well, then I also have to factor in that before and after, I was probably in a hospital bed somewhere undergoing one surgery or another, and that's why, like you said, it's a train moving. It's actually a scary thought, but yes, I think that is very important, that we have to own up what we say and what we think.
Right. So law of attraction. If you only remember, how do I want to feel? Okay. that will, if you answer that question to yourself, that will take you out of the memory of going, oh yeah, I was back in the hospital having this done. Because every time you go back into the hospital, right, having that done, you're keeping that vibration alive in you, and you're putting it out there to the universe. And you're saying,
and I'm probably lowering my vibration each time too, am I?
Yeah.
Well, you're lowering your vibration toward what you want to create, but it's a very powerful vibration to the universe. The universe does not know if that vibration that you're putting out is good or bad. It just goes, oh my God, it's Dr. J. I love Dr. J. Look at that passionate vibration he's putting out. Absolutely. Whatever that is, more of that for you, Dr. J. But it doesn't know that you're lamenting over the surgeries.
Or the coma, or the near-death experience,
okay,
or all that stuff.
Right, but what did you just do there?
I just introduced it again. I just said it to the universe, literally, again.
Exactly.
Let me ask you both this, and I'm going to start with Nori. Okay, since we all are both not only capable of having superhuman qualities, superpowers, and we are also capable of creating our future and our life, meaning law of attraction. Let's talk about intuition and how people can pay more attention to their intuition, because I believe from what we talked about, you have to sort of quiet your ego to do that. And I think a lot of people may have a hard time doing so. Is that true?
Well, your ego is going to keep you distracted, so that's true. But if you genuinely want to begin to open to your intuition, or to your future, or to your health, you just have to ask. And if you ask yourself, how do I want to feel? And am I feeling that way right now? And if the answer is no, what can I do to feel a little bit better? That's immediately going to shift your thoughts that are going to take you into a higher vibration. You don't have to do quantum mechanics. You don't have to do quantum physics on a blackboard. All you have to do is continue to ask yourself, what can I do to feel better in this next moment? Mm-hmm. And that would include not reliving, right, the litany of symptoms, because it doesn't feel good when you really, really go back into them. You know, when you think about hiking and getting a really deep breath, oh yeah, that just felt good. I want to think more about that, right? When you think about having freedom of movement, you know, just going to the park or the mall or whatever, having the freedom of movement, or, you know, not being attached to something that's weighed you down. I mean, those are the things that propel us into higher consciousness, that make us in alignment, that so we can hear our intuition, and actually, you know, puts us closer to source energy.
Interesting. We have a comment here, and this is a good friend of mine. He was also helping behind the scenes too, and I wanted to give him credit too for doing a lot of the a lot from engineering to I don't know what other titles to give him. He's just got so many, but he goes by Adaraki Studios. Adam, great guy. He's talking about egos. He says there are ways to undergo ego loss, ego dissolution. What do you think about that?
Aage, you were talking about ego earlier. I'm going to take it down a law of attraction path. So,
yeah, I think having to control the ego, I think, is somewhat important, and then direct it in the direction that you. I don't think it would be good to lose 100% of the ego. I don't believe that. I think. Because if we lost 100% of it, we'd be sitting in a cave somewhere, meditating, all of us. And that just wouldn't probably get us anything in the physical reality. It wouldn't create any progress in the physical, though spiritually it might have been great for us.
I guess my question would be, how do you define ego? What do you define ego as? Because that's going to be an independent journey for each person. You know, the things about my ego that that get in my way, that pull my vibration down, are not the same things as yours. I mean, maybe there are some things across the board, like, wishing ill will on other people or trying to hurt somebody, things like that. That's across the board. But the way that I perceive the things about ego that limit me are not going to be the same thing as yours. So my question would be is, what are these ego things that we're talking about, and what about them do you feel needs to be adjusted?
And first of all, let me mention, Nori, is when I say ego, I'm not talking about, being egotistical or anything like that. I'm talking about our inner self. The part, like you mentioned, that's distracting. And that's why I worded it in such a way, because I think a lot of people do know exactly what me and you are talking about when we refer to that. Before you take off or leave from the different vibrations, Lasha asked a very, very interesting question here. Let me find her question. Do animals have lower vibrations than humans?
No.
Interesting.
No. Their vibration is higher. They're pure positive energy. Oh my God, they are pure positive energy.
Especially, I think like dogs, for instance, they could undergo whatever experience you want, yet they're just always going to be happy. Really, they're generally some of the happiest animals. That is why so many more people are using dogs, service dogs, for emotional support. I mean, I'm blown away as to how many permits are being granted here in the Los Angeles area, and I think it might even be done at the federal level. I never really paid attention to it, but a lot more people are having these support dogs. And I remember when I was at the hospital, them bringing them around, but now it's just something major. And really, if you just look at a dog life, they're pretty happy. They're pretty darn happy all the time.
Yeah, my 4-pound Chihuahua, she came to me in a very unexpected way, and I named her Pixie Lynn Bliss. And she is a law of attraction personification for me. I mean, no matter what she does, no matter I think it's wrong, she's always there looking at me with big eyes and wagging her tail. Like, she is always pure positive energy. She's always doing what makes her happy. And that is such a good lesson for me. We'll be walking and she'll stop and lay down on the warm pavement in the sun. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? Wait, no, we're walking. And then I go, wait a minute. This is her law of attraction. All she wants to do is feel good in this moment. And apparently the warm cement on her stomach feels really good right now. So she is such a perfect role model for me. Perfect.
Absolutely. I think dogs are the absolute best expression in the physical of unconditional love.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I don't think anything else can touch that.
Well, I don't know. Other animals are pretty cool, but I agree with you.
Now, this is you mentioned other animals, Aage. What other animals would you can you list off possibly? And I'm talking about intelligent animals, and maybe you could even go past mammals. I mean, I've seen, our pet bird, a family pet bird, is always pretty darn happy too. But I can't say quite as much as, say, for instance, the neighbor's dog. I'm not trying to say the bird doesn't have a good life and the bird is not resonating good high frequency and happiness and good experiences, but it just seems to me that the dog's way happier and way always just wants to run up and get petted. As long as they get to eat and are shown attention by petting them, love, right?
Love.
That is essentially their experience. Now, we're actually on an interesting topic, and I'm going to take this straight out of a movie, and I'm very curious what you're going to say about this. Interstellar. If you remember, in Interstellar, clearly, it's about Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. They go through a wormhole, and they first think it's ETs that placed this black hole there, and it turns out that it was Matthew McConaughey or humans in a future time. But in there's an interesting phrase. When Anne Hathaway refers to the one of the planets she wants to go to, the Wolf Edmonds planet, and it's exposed to the rest of the crew. I think there's just one person left after Matthew McConaughey at that point. She says that love transcends dimensions, boundaries.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
there you go. So that was the answer I was looking for. Can you explain to us how and why?
Well, then let's go back to what Albert Einstein said again. He said in his about a year or so before he died, he made it in a speech. He said that I have found that the whole universe is made from love. If the whole universe is made from love, everything we see around us is attached to that frequency somehow. Even here, higher vibrations. So that frequency can travel through everything because it is everything.
It's a frequency, absolutely.
Yeah.
The frequency of love.
Interesting put. Is there any higher frequency than love?
I do not believe so. I think that is what the source is.
Nori?
Source of everything.
Would you agree?
I think the frequency of love has to do with the harmonic balance. And so there could be frequencies that are a higher number, but the frequency of love regarding its harmonics makes it different. Yeah.
Yeah.
What other emotions would you say also have a high frequency? Because we talked about some that have low frequency, that's for darn sure. Let's talk about other things that will enable us to transcend other boundaries, other dimensions, and more importantly, attract. I mean, you mentioned thinking positively, talking positively, loving people, but what else can people say, do, or even think that will not just affect their future, but affect what's going on in their other dimensions?
Let's go maybe back to animals for a second. A lot of people think that, well, they're just animals. They don't have any emotions. Oh, yes, they do. I've seen that in animals that is sad. They actually have tears coming out of their eyes.
I've actually seen Aage too, that a friend of mine, he had a dog that was very happy, but he was always angry and sad. This dog developed cancer. And I have a feeling, Aage, that my friend's own actions and feelings really traveled to his own dog too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
compassion,
Interesting.
compassion, right? When you are in resonance with the heart energy of another person, it makes you go, "Aw, aw," or "Wow," or you just have that feeling, that tingliness, right? That's a higher vibration. Kindness. I mean, I picked up a butterfly off the hot pavement last summer and it was dying. And I had such a communion with this dying butterfly that I carried to the greenest, softest, most beautiful place I could. I can't even tell you what that did for me. Not just that day, but that kind of energetic exchange changed my life. So kindness, compassion, laughter, right? Just well-meaning laughter.
Right.
These are all really great things. And, you don't have to strive for feelings that you might not be feeling at the moment. Like Abraham Hicks says, you can't put a happy sticker on an empty gas tank. So you shouldn't try to fake, that you're feeling love or fake that you're feeling compassion. Sometimes just moving yourself from an uncomfortable feeling to feeling neutral is as much as if you were feeling love. It does that much good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're talking a lot about thought, right? And feelings, which bring other things. Now, this is maybe sort of coming out of left field, but at the same time, I have to say it's related, because if our thoughts are affecting not just us, but our reality and even those around us and our future, well, then I'm sort of opening up the door to telepathy. And let me tell you a very interesting story that Dr. Roger Lear conveyed to me before he passed away. He said that his own take on what happened to the Tower of Babel is that we humans inherently were all telepathic. And once they started to build this tower and pissed off God or gods, hence the so-called ETs, that the telepathic powers were stripped away from humanity, and that's when we first started speaking vocally, hence in tongues. It wasn't that one person was speaking one language and another language. He was saying that the reason why it was written that they were speaking in tongues was literally because that's the first time they were vocalizing what they were feeling. What do you think about this? That hypothesis, and what can we do to reverse that?
Well, if we look at the Sumerian tablets, we find also out there that when the Anunnaki, they created man, they took away from their own ability. Actually, they inserted their own substance into the twisted ropes of life. So they inserted their own substance in there, but they took away certain higher qualities like long life, and also it says knowing what is in the other's mind. So that telepathic ability was taken away when they created man. They never wanted us to be able to do that, and that's part of what is called junk DNA, where if that junk DNA is sticking out into nowhere, well, it's kind of obvious that it was meant to be of a purpose, but it doesn't show like it has. So right now we're seeing that in some of the indigo kids, and the junk DNA is starting to assemble itself into a third strand, and they got some really neat abilities. So
you mentioned indigo kids. Can you go in more into detail into them and what they are and who they are? Because I'm very interested in what you just said.
Well, there are several terms for them, but these are kids that they feel like they don't even belong to this world. They are usually very empathic, and they are very often they have psychic abilities. They can know things before it happens, and they are very often, they go into computer science because they are very sharp. They got an excellent memory, and they become nerds, and they become spiritual leaders, and they become much outside of the box. So that's where they feel like they are, and they don't feel like they even belong here sometimes. But they're different, and they have phenomenal abilities. So I would think that what we should think about also is what happened to them. We have the same abilities. All we have to do is to seek it out.
Maybe so we're all telepathic.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, Nori. Thank you for saying that, because
all are. And in fact, I've had some great results with things like that. I don't talk about this a lot, but I think 27 years ago I had a radio show out of Sanford, Florida, where I was giving psychic readings on the radio. And we got good at it in a 13-week contract. We got really good at it at the end of it. We called their names before they had introduced themselves sometimes. So these things can be learned. And in fact, I talk about that in the book also, how to go about doing that. So,
or remembered.
No, yeah, remembered. That's a very important thing. I guess before I was going to ask, okay, I'll come back to this point in a second. Let me just go ahead and what you're just saying, remembered. So a lot of people mention the fact that reincarnation, that each of us living right now, are carrying inside of us the memories of the past lives, past experiences, past abilities, and they are somewhat locked. And depending on who you are, you can unlock them. Or sometimes they may break through and you may have a memory of a different time. What do you guys think about that?
Well, this one, Nori needs to speak of it. She is a practicing hypnotherapist, and she takes people back to find their previous life. This one is all yours, Nori.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally, I agree with a good bit of that. You know, that it restricts us in this life or something like that. I don't really believe that, but I do believe that we do carry the vibration of other lives, and if it shows up for you in a way this life that makes you go, oh my God, there's something about this I need to address, then you should absolutely have a regression. Yeah.
It's Adam, I guess you use Adam, dear friend of mine too. And like I said, he was helping behind the scenes until he had things to do. Made an interesting point. Yeah, is an indigo child a star child? What do you guys say?
You know what? There's so much language. I have to laugh, and I'm so sorry. There's so much language out there, right, about indigo children and crystal children and star seeds. I mean, I love that there's all of that out there, because to me, those are all avenues for people to discover themselves through. But for me personally, to give one answer about that, I can't. But I feel like it's so fluid. It's fluid between every person and what they believe about that.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Nori, or sorry, Aage?
Yeah,
Any comment on that?
I agree. It's just different terms for the same thing.
Now, let me go back to something that you mentioned, Aage, about this junk DNA that these indigo children seem to be forming. You said, I believe you said third strand. Is that what you said?
Yeah, some of it, there are sections, small sections that is assembled from the junk DNA that was not there on a normal human being before. So there is a change happening.
And so, Nori, you've already shown and proven that you can alter your DNA. Do you also believe the title of junk DNA, or do you think that this DNA has always had a purpose and is now manifesting itself in these children?
Yeah, I don't think there's junk DNA. I think everything has a purpose, and we just can't. We are not expansive enough yet to understand how that's going to be used.
You mentioned purpose. Let me ask the most philosophical question, and again, this is totally speculation, because this is beyond the $1 million question. This is probably the gazillion-dollar question that everybody has asked for so many times throughout history, whether it be Socrates, Plato. It's always joked about. What is our purpose?
It's what you believe it is.
Interesting. Very interestingly put. Because, see, a lot of people still ponder the meaning of life, and I have a feeling that debate will still carry on for
exactly
1,000 years, longer than that, until we hit another dimension, pass away, and I honestly, I couldn't even answer that, but I do know if it's carried this long in time, then it's still going on. Which, speaking of time, I heard an interesting topic, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, that the longer that a word, say something in Sanskrit, was spoken, that carried through time, that didn't change, meaning that, let's just say, the language wasn't forgotten, and the more times a certain word was spoken that was connected to something powerful, maybe even holy, if you want to use that word, well, the power of that vocal saying, even now, carries with it all those thousands of years prior to you, and all the people who have said it, the power of everybody. What do you think about that?
I think that frequency could be very powerful. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that frequency of certain sounds and words from the past has a mathematical substance or message sometimes locked in that frequency that will be carried forward and can affect future decisions or future people, so that it can have an effect in the future for those that listen to it.
At Aage Studios writes, the purpose of life is to find your way back to the light. What do you say about that? I like that statement, actually.
I like that too. I was thinking before that, the people who are debating the purpose of life, that's a great subject for people who like to debate. But people who really, really want to answer it come up with statements like that. The purpose is to find my way back to the light. Absolutely.
Well, honestly, I got to say, people that are listening to the show are generally not the people, like you mentioned earlier, the first category that are going to debate. They are people that are awake, definitely, because
I love your listeners.
They're absolutely paying attention, and that's what I love, too. And engaged. I can't go wrong with that.
So great.
Yeah, I think having our purpose of finding our way back to life is pretty accurate, actually, because what we think we are living is not life, it is existence. Because if we live in a mind-created universe, the mind has then created a construct of appearance of reality, which is, again, a construct of something that is not real life. It is a holographic existence. So once we get done with that holographic existence, we come back to life again.
I'm actually glad you opened up this door, Aage, because that's one thing that I was actually wanting to talk to both of you about, and I know we talked about it last time, and that's exactly why I'd even written down the two words, holographic universe, and the fact that you just opened up the door, I think, is a good opportunity for us to talk about. First, if you could define for those people, I highly doubt these people in the chat room especially, I don't know what this is, but just for the general people globally who are listening right now, describe in your words, Aage, what is the holographic universe?
Well, the holographic universe goes way beyond us. We're just a small part of it when I talk about the existence that we have here. And the holographic universe is interconnected with a web. And the different levels of that web goes all the way from what we can see all the way down to that string in the string theory. Everything in there is connected through both the string and the subatomic particles that vibrate next to each other. Even they are billions of light years apart, they vibrate next to each other.
Well, Aage, actually, you made a really good point, because remember when I mentioned string theory, that was one of the whole purposes of it. Aside from the fact that it talks about that everything is a vibration, it also mentions the fact that everything, like you said, is connected. No matter how far apart, what happens on one part of the string is absolutely going to happen on the other part. And like you said, subatomic, that is the exact way to describe it, because the strings in string theory are literally subatomic. But at the same time, they're connected to the space, time, I guess whatever you want to call it, the fabric of space. And that's why everything is connected at the same time. So when you mention holographic universe, automatically I'm thinking dimensions. What do you say?
Yeah, there's a holographic universe on every level of existence. So I would say, let's make it simpler, probably. The holographic universe is interconnected with both us and everything around us in the physical, so we have access by thought and consciousness to anyone or anything at any distance within our universe.
Interesting. Nori, what's your take on that?
My take is that we are unlimited, multidimensional beings, and we are connected.
Now, this is something, let me just throw this out there. If you look at our history, and I'm talking about just history going back a few thousand years, because obviously our previous history is up for debate, whether it be that we don't come from this earth. Joe Montaldo, the station owner, made a really good point when he was talking to Dr. Turi, and I happened to be on with him at that point, that we breathe on this planet oxygen, but yet our atmosphere is 80% nitrogen, right? Well, also, why is, I believe he said that each day here is either 24 hours and a quarter long or something like that, and that's what our clock is?
Yeah.
What did you say? Say it for me, Aage. What is it?
No, it's very close to 24 hours. It's not quite.
But the whole reason I'm mentioning this, though, is because it sounds to me that we never came from Earth. This is just another home. Mars, I think, fits this time frame. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think that's what Joe even said. You know, that is a very huge question, and I've never actually considered that. Now, I've considered panspermia. I've considered that we obviously had an ancient civilization on Mars. There's still roads and runways and pyramids and other buildings and this giant, human-faced shape. No atmosphere anymore. So did we live there and then end up coming here at some point in the past? Sure, I've absolutely considered that. But I never considered it that, hey, that was our original home. But then that also poses the other question, what you mentioned, Aage. What about the Anunnaki? How does this fit into the two? Is it the Anunnaki grabbed us from Mars, brought us here, and then we just died off on Mars naturally?
No, I tend to lean towards the written record of human and Earth history that's written in the Sumerian tablets, because there is so many different. There are different tablets written in different parts of the Middle East that says the same thing. So I kind of tend to lean towards that the Anunnaki created a form of man or human, but there were also others that was seeded, and in fact 5,000 years ago there were the Dogon people in Africa. They talk about a ship that came down and spent some time with them because they were seeded from Sirius II, and back in the early 1930s nobody knew about that. Sirius was 2 stars. It was a dual star system. Nobody knew that, but the Dogon people did, and they didn't even have binoculars.
Well, again, that actually shows so much of our ancient history. Well, yeah. How did they know this? How did they know that when they really didn't have, the telescope wasn't invented for thousands of years later, yet they were able to accurately place stars and star systems where they were long before we were able to discover them. Even now, I believe some were even discovered after the Hubble Space Telescope or the Kepler Space Telescope, which really begs the question, how did they get that information?
Yeah.
Let me take it to some questions, unless you want to comment, finish your comment, Aage, and Nora, if you want to comment on that.
Good, thank you.
Now, I'm going to take this first to Nori, because you absolutely, I think, believe this is actually meant for both of you. I'm going to start with Nori. And this is also from Adiraki Studios. He says, I have a question. Does Aage or Nori believe the soul is timeless?
Believe the soul is timeless. I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do too.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's another question from Katerina Luna Di Camilla.
Beautiful.
If butterfly effect can affect the cause of the future, does it mean everything has already been planned?
No. Because we get to choose. We get to choose in each new moment.
No, not everything is planned for the future or the past or the present.
Here's another interesting question, also from Katerina. Do we have a soul, and what is a soul?
That's a very individual question.
Let me run with that one.
Yeah, you go with that, because my mind just went all over the board. Yeah.
Yeah, boy, I kind of lost my thought on this one too. But a soul, that is what I see, is that it's an intelligent spark of life that is given a temporary and a temporary consciousness that is, oh no, I lost that one. From the universal consciousness, we are given a temporary spark of life that we are inserted into, we're creating a physical body with, and we live in our present existence for as long as this physical body serves a purpose, and the spark of life will go back to its source, and it will add the memories of the experiences that it had to the source. So the source will actually have our experiences as its own, so we will join with it.
Exactly what Nori was essentially talking about when you mentioned that she's a hypnotherapist and brings up through people their past lives. Hence, each life they lived is tacked on, essentially. Each experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered, this is really interesting because this is a point that I recently saw in a very old episode of Unsolved Mysteries. And for those out there who are also fans of Unsolved Mysteries, I found some amazing news. It is coming back with the original producers onto Netflix, so watch for it. And if you have a very interesting case, go to unsolved.com and submit it. I'm very interested to see who's going to host it, and more importantly, what are they going to cover this time. But in this particular episode, they were talking about children. Some children, up until the age of 7, literally are, it's as if their souls are in their little children's bodies, but they're actually, for instance, one child, his father's father had passed away, his grandfather. Yet the child would say things like, I used to be big before I became small. Or they would be in a restaurant somewhere that the grandfather would eat at all the time, and the bartender or the waiter was someone that the grandfather knew. And the child would say, I used to know this person, things like that. I was blown away. I was literally blown away, because this just goes to show that, hey, not only is past life experiences almost a certainty thing that's recurring, but it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that these past lives not only come back into the same family, but even into the same sex of the child. What do you guys say?
Yeah, that happens a lot. And that was an excellent example. Another one that I can think of is that there was, I think it was about a 7, 8, 9-year-old child that said, I used to be a pilot in my last life, and they were laughing at him. And he says, well, I got shot down, I got killed, and he told them exactly where the plane was. When it crashed, it was in a lake, and they went and dove into the lake, and doggone it, there was the airplane. So there is no way that kid could know that.
Unless, of course, he was that person in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Children are so close to source energy. Absolutely. I mean, as a nurse, I've had children, signal to me when patients were going to die, when I would look at the patient and, the monitors and go, I don't think that's really going to happen. And then the reaction of the child or something that they would do would signal to me that they were getting that, and they were right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that what, how did you first realize, Nori, when did you start practicing hypnotherapist and literally taking people back into their past lives? And one more personal question as far as that, and without naming names, what's the furthest life you've ever taken someone back to?
I've taken, people have given me the opportunity to witness them, to go back to what appeared like the future in galactic lives. So, I mean, that's so far back that it looks forward.
And that actually goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, that we may have come from somewhere else, including Mars, and that we were probably more advanced to some aspect. Now, let me ask before we go further on that, because Lasha has been asked a really interesting question, and I want to pose it to you both. Again, this is Lasha Senyak. How do you know reality was meant to be physical? And she goes on, what if I told you physical life is very, very rare and that the universe is teeming with non-physical life? What do you guys say?
What is the question, please?
How do you know reality was meant to be physical?
First of all, reality is not physical. Is not really reality. It is a construct of the mind.
Exactly.
So we're limited in essence, and we are limiting ourselves. This goes back to the whole beginning of the conversation.
We limit ourselves when we can choose so much more. The choices are limitless.
And the second part of that question, though, he's totally accurate, because the biggest part of the universe is non-physical.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's actually very true.
Multidimensional, non-physical beings, but having a physical moment. Yeah.
Some people also say that the whole reason we are living this life is, and remember, in the scheme of things, in the scheme of just Earth, 4.5 billion years old, 100 years is, literally, nothing. But some people think that we are here meant to learn a lesson, learn whatever we're supposed to be taught before we're meant to go on and proceed, as if we're carried on something from the past life that we didn't learn, or that we were brought back here to go through a certain experience because our soul needs it, even though we don't remember it. But that's an idea out there. What do you guys think about that?
I think that if that's what you choose to believe, then that's what it is. I don't believe in a punitive God universe that's, oh no, you didn't get that right, let's go redo. I totally don't believe in that. I don't.
I agree too. No, there's not that old man, with a long white beard sitting on the cloud up there in a chair and telling us what to do. That's just not it. Though, when we drop the body and go back into spiritual form, there is a review of what we have learned, and it is up to us if we want to go back and do something that we didn't quite, that we had a passion for, that we didn't quite get right. We want to go back and relive that experience and see if we can get some more out of it. That is up to us. We can do that.
I think we're energy expressing, that we are energy expressing, that I believe that we're a little spark of the Creator expressing on the planet. So what did you come here to express? That's my question. What do you want to express? How do you want the expression of the rest of your life to look like? Let's start there. Yeah.
We're the boss.
That's true. And this goes back to what we were saying from the very beginning, that we literally create our own reality, and what we think is what we do. Now, let me take this one step further into light beings. Are we in fact light beings? Is our soul a light being? Or if not, is it because we are, for instance, back to string theory, rocks are vibrating at such a low frequency, that's what makes them hard. So does that mean that if you're vibrating a super high frequency, you don't have a physical body, that you are literally light?
We are photons.
So we are, essentially. That's a yes. Mm-hmm. Aage, what do you say?
Yeah, with that. And also subatomic particles that interact with it, phasing in and out of the physical.
So. Yeah. So do we have a light body? Absolutely. Yes.
Yep, we sure do.
Yeah.
In fact, I got pictures on my website proving it.
Well, you have the pictures of the energetic field, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that too. That was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you something about technology, because a lot of people are talking about it on MSM. And I know we have to worry about MSM, especially now since 95% is bashing POTUS and wants to lead us down a path of socialism again. And again, remember, if we don't remember what happened, we are doomed to repeat it. That is why history is so darn important. But quantum computers, and that was just my little throw in there, for the dangers of it. But even within that, they still talk about quantum computing. Do you guys know what the difference is from traditional binary computers versus quantum computing?
Well, I have not studied it that well up and beyond the cursory surface information on it. The quantum computer is basically also electronics submerged in an extreme cold temperature, so that the resistance in the wires and the electronics disappear, and it then starts reaching outside of the wires, and it touches the matrix of the universe. And a quantum computer here can find things in other computers totally not connected with physical wires.
I think we are the most powerful quantum computer there is, and we get to write our own program if we want to.
Agree.
Yeah, if we want to.
And that's actually been the whole recurring theme of this whole literally, I want to say 2 hours, but really not quite, because we got a little late start here. So an hour and 40 minutes is that we are always writing our own program. We are always responsible for everything, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. We have the option to choose. There are so many choices. The choices are limitless.
Yeah, we're the boss.
Let me throw a little twist to this. What do you do with regards to experiences that involve other people, that they may be having some sort of experience because they're vibrating in a lower frequency or having negative thoughts, and cause something, and that affects you? I don't want to throw negative stuff to the universe, but adversely.
You need to, well, that's the reason why we have to choose the people that we choose to co-create with, if you will. Now, I can't necessarily co-create in your world unless you give me permission. But if you are co-creating with somebody either intentionally or by default, because you've chosen to, mix your energies that way, then you can be impacted by the fallout of their choices. And that's why it's important to choose the frequency of the people that you want to be around.
Agreed. Very, very much agreed. I definitely have to second that motion. Aage?
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to turn this to you. And Aage, I'm actually going to turn it to you between both of you, so you can ask Nori, because I want to give you the opportunity to mention anything that hold on a second. Before I give you the floor to throw in any topics we haven't, Lasha has another interesting question. What is co-create?
Co-create is where you agree to allow another person's energy to express in your life.
Oh, create in your life. Yeah, that's true.
Right, to express in your life. So by, Aage and I co-create. We choose to have a relationship where we co-create certain things in the spiritual community or in the broadcasting realm. We choose to co-create that way. And, I choose Aage for very specific reasons, because he's pretty strict, with the practices that we talk about. And if, nobody can be really, really, 100%. But when either of us waver, right, our frequency starts to waver, we can pull each other back up. So co-creating is allowing the intentions of others to take shape in your life.
Let me throw in a shout out here. I just got one of these super chats here from Lars Saturn. I want to thank Lars, and of course he's thanking me, so I definitely want to say you're more than welcome. And really, don't thank me, Lars. I appreciate it. I want to thank the guests and you guys, the listeners, because if it wasn't for you guys being so darn cool out there listening, then cool. We wouldn't have such amazing conversations here. Back to quantum computing, we have an answer here. HelidiumLabs.com says quantum computing are holographic motherboards on the global grid. Very interesting. What do you say about that?
Yeah, that's probably right.
I think that's the coolest, the best explanation I've ever heard so far. Mm-hmm. Especially
if you want to learn about that, I encourage you to subscribe to Helidium Labs YouTube channel. I mean, that's Thunder. That's Gary Pratt, and he's a quantum physicist. He's freaking brilliant. So if there are things you want to learn about the holographic universe or the quantum mechanics, I totally encourage you to subscribe to him. Absolutely.
Now, this is what I wanted to do since we are coming close. I wanted to give the floor to you, Aage, to ask Nori or to bring up any topics that we should probably bring up before time is out.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. I'm giving it to you, Aage.
Oh boy, she's gonna run off now. Well, I don't even know what to ask, but I think. Let me ask you this story. And here goes.
Ooh.
If you could speak to the whole world right now, what would you tell them?
Well said. Very well said.
I would tell them that you are love and you are loved and you are an unlimited, multidimensional being that has the ability to create what comes next based on your choices. That was probably a lot, but...
No, it wasn't. I liked it. I liked it, actually.
The love part is the most important part. I mean, if you don't know what to do, if you don't know where to start, just start with love. Like whatever makes you feel love, looking at your dog or going to the ocean or, whatever it is that makes you feel it, just start there. That's perfect.
Happiness, too, right? Like, for me, I like skydiving. I mean, that puts a giant smile on my face all the time. So
yeah, you love it.
I would imagine by doing so, I'm bringing, because I to say you don't get scared when you don't jump is something bad, because if you don't have any fear when you skydive, well, you don't belong skydiving. Yeah. But overall, I have to say that little bit of fear, that apprehension that is up when I call the elevator, hence the plane that takes us up to altitude, it goes away pretty darn quickly once you hit terminal velocity within the first few seconds. So I would imagine that that's actually bringing me a lot of more joy.
Absolutely. That is bringing you more joy. That is bringing you more joy. And, the other thing about love, I mean, there's a lot of discussion about the frequency of love, whether it's 529 or 528 or 428. You can listen, you can choose music, you can choose sounds that have that frequency, and that can bring you what you're looking for from the outside going in. So you don't have to try and think about love or imagine love or whatever. You can actually come at it from that direction.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. You know what? Here is something really cool here. Lasha's asking this. Why do we suffer then?
What a great question.
Yeah.
That's such a good question. And I appreciate that question right now, probably more than ever, because I had a situation that I couldn't escape the suffering, like the physical suffering from it. And I was like, wait, I create my own reality. How can this be? How can this be that I have this showing up in my life this way? And I don't really have the answer. I know that some of the greatest teachers that I have posed that question to, they're just like some souls, it's in their journey. Suffering is, I think, the way that we deal with something. Pain is inevitable. We're going to have pain. We may have pain for a long time. We may have pain for 8 months or a year or whatever. But I learned how to not suffer while having pain. So if that was my lesson, am I good with that? Yeah. Does pain inspire us to open more deeply to who we've come to be, or to do that thing that we signed up to do when we come here? Yeah. If the universe can't get your attention, it's going to get your attention some way. So I think although pain gets a really bad reputation, it might not be as bad as we've made it out to be. I think pain could be a gift.
I would say also that spiritually, there is no such thing as bad experience or good experiences or pain even. It is only an experience. And the spirit or the higher consciousness may want that to experience it. And in order to experience it has to be done in the physical realms. So we can then start thinking more spiritually, and we can go within in meditation and ask for a solution to what we have, and then we can get the answer, or we can be led to it. So things come through going within, especially in meditation, and that's why I recommend that very highly. You can start from 2 minutes, closing the mind down and think about nothing, and just go from there up to 20 minutes a day, and you will see some phenomenal results from it.
Real quick, I'm going to get your final statements in a second to what you want to say to everybody, but I'm glad you brought up meditation, Aage, because that was something I meant to bring up quite some time ago. And Nori, I wanted to ask you, why do you think meditation is important? Personally, your own take. And we heard what Aage said, and of course, I've known from what he's also told me personally of how to shut my mind off, which was phenomenal. But what's your take on meditation?
I think it's so important because it connects us with the core essence of who we really are. It takes us out of the busy, mundane, calculating mind, and it connects us to our spirit or our soul or to source or to God or to the higher consciousness or the wise mind or whatever you want to call it. It takes you back home where your power really, really is. And I think that's so important. It's so important.
Yeah.
Now, let me give you guys, I know we went over, but then again, we started a little late. So I want to give you both an opportunity to give some final thoughts to everybody out there listening.
Give some final thoughts.
Well, a final thought. What would your closing thought be to everybody? If you had one final thing to say, just literally, if we were limited to one thought or one statement, what would it be?
Well, let me go first on that one. Just know that within the mind there is no limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I want to ask the listeners a question. And I want them to take 24 hours to think on it and answer that question. Because you'll know in a little bit. The question is, what would you start tomorrow morning if you knew you could not fail?
Absolutely.
So take 24 hours before you answer that question, because I guarantee you nobody is able to think big enough.
So brilliant minds think alike, because that's exactly where I would have gone. I mean, I would say you are limitless. You are limitless. Just know that. Start there.
Well said. Well said. Well, again, I want to thank you both for being on the show, and we're going to absolutely do this again. Nori Love, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show and to talk to you off the show. And I want to thank you on air publicly for all your help with Reiki.
My pleasure, my honor.
And Aage, thank you so much too. You're always full of knowledge, and I will never forget that you contributed. Even though it was such a small thing, it's such a humongous thing for me to finally be able, after 2+ decades, to stop my mind so I could actually meditate properly. You know what, real quick, why don't you just tell people, so I don't have to repeat it, what it is that you told me to get people to stop? It's so easy. I can't believe I didn't think of it before.
Well, and first of all, if you want to know more about that, just have a look at this book that I wrote on spiritual science and higher conscious thinking and how to access the universal consciousness. I teach people how to use their mind in ways that they thought was impossible. So, but for the meditation part of it, sit down and look straight ahead, find a spot on the wall, a dot or a line or something, and then cross your eyes very slightly, not so much that it hurts, but just enough to you now see 2 spots on the wall. Keep it that way for a little bit, and then close your eyes and still keep your eyes slightly crossed. You're going to feel right away that all the thoughts float away and it goes quiet behind the eyelids.
And the reason for this is because you are keeping your mind occupied, right?
Yeah. The mind is busy doing something that doesn't take thought to do.
Now, let me give individual shout-outs here to all these awesome people, and it's going to be quite a list. First, I want to thank Lars Saturn again for donating in the Super Chat. Very, very cool. I really appreciate that. Let's see, we also have Free Cosmos. I know you guys know who that is. Tom Schaefer. Yes, that's right. Broadcast Team Alpha. That is, might as well, hey, real quick, plug in your own shows. Plug in where people can find you both.
Okay, well, we're doing a video podcast also that is broadcastteamalpha.com. And also check out, I have a website where I got 4,800 pictures of unbelievable things at Aage-Nost.com. That's AAGE-NOST.com. And Nori?
Yeah, so I just Broadcast Team Alpha. We have cutting edge conversations while exploring the quantum possibilities. And if you just go there and subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll be notified when we have interviews. We have had some remarkable guests. So if you go there, I promise you'll find something that makes you go, wow, I cannot believe that happened. So definitely go check that out. My website is everythingconscious.com. You'll be able to find out about my offerings, hypnotherapy, Reiki, life coaching there. And
Nora, you got a seminar coming up here not too long from now. Maybe you mentioned that too?
Yeah, so we were talking about how pain can be a gift. So, I mean, we agreed to come in to experience this life in a physical body. So sometimes there are things about the body that are calling to us. They're calling to us because they're uncomfortable. And underneath that calling is a spiritual journey. So I'm having the 3rd annual Body, Mind, Spirit, and Soul Fusion, the Body Transformation 12-week Masterclass. In the past, we just talked about all of the really cool things, law of attraction and hypnotherapy and neuroscience-wise that you would get, plus the great community. And that naturally, law of attraction would lead you to transforming your body. But this year, I'm really upping the ante. Because if you're not uncomfortable, I'm saying you can lose 25 pounds by May. If you're not uncomfortable in your body, but you want to change the shape of your body, we're going to do something. We're going to take you out of your comfort zone. So we're going to do all the really cool woo-woo energy things. We're going to do all of them, but we're going to do something really, really physical. And that's no matter what you choose, whether you choose keto or whether you choose gluten-free or whether you choose raw or whatever food you subscribe to, you're going to learn the interaction, the relationship, the dynamic between calories put in and energy put out. It's a very basic science. So we're going to do all the woo-woo stuff, but we're going to do a really deep dive on putting yourself in a little uncomfortable situation. So you're going to have to discipline yourself. If you really want to make a change, you're going to have to discipline yourself, and you're going to use that discomfort of not eating after 8 o'clock at night or whatever that thing is. You're going to use that discomfort to expand your spiritual journey even further. So you're not only going to come out transformed inside, you're going to come out transformed on the outside, and you're going to fall in love with yourself.
Let me also say this. I can vouch for keto. It is absolutely fantastic, and it does work. So I'm glad you brought that up.
It's fantastic, but what do they tell you? Oh, please, go ahead. Eat everything. Eat all of the cheese that you want. Eat all of the steak that you want. Eat all of this that you want. When, you know what? Is that really true? Do you really need to eat all of that you want? Is your body telling you that maybe you want to do it a little bit differently? And if that is a glimmer of possibility, well, then I'm offering people something completely different.
Well said. Well said. And again, both those links for both of you, for Aage and Nori, are also available on our site, drjradiolive.com.
Thank you.
Now, again, I'm going to go through this list because I did stop it in the third person in, so let me thank each individual person who did contribute to this, aside from, of course, the guests. I did say Lars Saturn. I want to thank Lars yet again, and Blue Skies. Lars would definitely understand that as someone who has been skydiving twice. Again, I also mentioned Lasha Senyak. Sorry about that. Again, Lasha. And you heard me say, of course, Tom, also known as Free Cosmos. We also have here, let's see, David Lopez. Thank you for joining us. Lithiumlabs.com. Right on. Thank you. Jax Scorpio. So I have him. I'm bypassing some of the teammates out because they're going to get thanks in a second. So let's go here. Who else? Katerina Luna de Camilla. Thank you again for joining us tonight. And again, I want to tell you publicly that Richard Doty really did enjoy your questions last night, by the way, and he did comment on so after the show. And let's see who else. David Lopez. I don't know if I did say that. I believe I might have, but just in case, I'm covering my bases here. And let's see who else is there. Wow, we got a lot of chat today. This is pretty darn good. These people are really active. I got to say, very, very active here. Anybody that I missed? Possibly LM. Literally, ELLM. Thank you, L. And now I want to get to my actual, geez, I cannot forget, as I'm going down the list, we have Adaraki Studios, my moderator. Yes, thank you, Adam, for being back, Adaraki. And let me see if there's anybody else that I missed here that deserves a shout out. I think I covered them all. I'm just literally scrolling down through this large chat, which is fantastic that people were really this active. And let's see if anyone did join. Okay, now on my team side, I did mention Adam at Adaraki Studios. He is my moderator. We also have Pam Brettenberg. She is also a social media manager, moderator, and more than that. She has a website, unitedtruthseekers.com. Be sure and check that out. Josh Cherez, he's also in the chat. He is my assistant producer and VP of operations. He does a lot behind the scenes to help with this show. The other people I do want to thank, of course, are the owner of this network, Joe Montaldo, UPRN, United Public Radio Network. Shout out to those in Louisiana, New Orleans specifically, 107.7 FM, with all the other affiliates, including Deprogrammed Radio in the UK. I want to thank JC out there for carrying this show. Really cool because we get to have the global experience. And last night we did have someone who literally did stay up to be across from the Atlantic pond. I really like it when people stay up on the other side to partake in this show. And I also want to thank, literally, again, all you listeners. I know I mentioned each of you by name in the chat, but I'm talking to every person out there who may have not been in the chat but was just listening. Let me tell you all this. Yes, I absolutely want to thank you, but here's my message to you folks. Remember, disclosure and everything. I'm not just talking about extraterrestrial disclosure. I'm talking about all this forbidden knowledge. It's all in your hands, folks. Please don't be just passive listeners. Please be active. Take the information you heard tonight and apply it to your own life. Share it with somebody. Maybe you want to pass on a book to someone. Turn them onto this channel. Something. Please try to contribute to help changing this world for the better. Because knowledge is power, as you've heard from the last 2 hours. And with knowledge, you can also, geez, if you guys didn't know up until tonight how important your thoughts are and how much they truly affect your life, well, then I'm sure you probably get the huge hint right now. And that is why it's so important that you all share this information. So I do want to tell you all, please remember that disclosure, and I mean that in a very broad sense. Like I said, not just ET disclosure, but forbidden knowledge. It's all in your hands. So those I want to thank. And let me say one final thing. I did mention drjradiolive.com, which is the website to go to, drjradiolive.com. Every single social media outlet, minds.com, cryptocurrency channel that pays you in crypto to use it, which pays you in Ethereum-based tokens. It's very similar to Facebook. And there's also BitTube, another cryptocurrency site that is basically the crypto YouTube. But traditional things, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, Google+, Gmail, whatever you could think of, especially YouTube, it's all the same thing. The name of the show, at DRJ Radio Live. With that being said, folks, now it's finally time for us, 17 past the hour, because we started late, to officially sign off.